All right. Hello. It is Friday, and it's just a few seconds away from being 5 o'clock somewhere in the United States, in the continental United States. So you have made it. If you're on the East Coast, you've made it to the end of the work week. I'm Dave Shore. Thank you for joining. I always try to pop up and then give it a little time because I know that there are some notifications that end up coming. I think I've told you before, I think Facebook and LinkedIn, which is where I'm live now, I don't think they want you to ever figure out the algorithms. I think there's something very clandestine about this. It seems like if you search it online, you can find one way to do it, and you can make sure that you increase the number of viewers. But it's really just about me having a conversation with you. If you're joining for the first time, this started a few weeks ago. I just decided here I am in the office at the end of the week. There's not that many people here still because of COVID. And I thought, you know what? What a tremendous amount of friends, colleagues, and professionals that I have on these platforms that I just want to talk with. And so that's why we're doing live at 5, and we're going to do it each and every week. We've had a couple of good guests so far, and it's a whole lot of fun. If you're joining for the first time, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the ALS Association North Carolina chapter. My office is right here in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, the state capital. State capital is about 1 block over, and the governor's mansion's about 1 block the other way. And we're on the second floor of the building here in downtown Raleigh. And I just start to kind of wind down. It's been a good week. I got the vaccination, the Johnson & Johnson vaccination. So it didn't do anything but make me a little tired. I just got a little tired that same night. And then last night, about the same time, I just started to get tired again. So it makes you feel good when you have it done and you don't have any really bad reactions. All right. Next week, we're going to add the YouTube platform as well. So I'm going to have you search for Shore Sports Media. All right. And subscribe to that, please, because I established that. Really haven't gotten that many subscribers on it, but I want to post all these episodes so that we can look back. Last week, we had to do it on Thursday. We had a lot of fun with Jerry V, the great Jerry Valancourt, former NBA analyst, as we talked about some of the things. I think my guest for this week is already here because he knows what it's like to be here early, and so I'm going to bring him on. Hello, Beto Duran, my former colleague in Los Angeles, and I was gonna give a big buildup because, you know, I would say that the greatest blessing of any place I've ever been is the actual people I get to work with, and Beto and I ended up being side by side working many, many games and broadcasts. And there's no better person to have at your side than Beto, because Beto needs no instruction as a manager or a boss, no instruction, no training as to what needs to be done. Is that good enough, Beto? I mean, you are the consummate professional, and I appreciate you coming on.
Dave, once again, thank you so much for having me. I just subscribed to the YouTube channel. So now you have a couple people there. And for people who don't know, I was your employee, but at the same time, I never felt like I was your employee, if that makes any kind of sense. Even though you were the boss, you treated everybody as equal. And I'm not saying this because I'm your guest here right now. Heck, most bosses, when you work in radio, as soon as they're gone, it's out of sight, out of mind, and I delete their number, and I don't want to deal with them. You and I text frequently. We're in constant communication, and it's awesome. You're somebody that when I'm said and done in my old age, you'll be like, I remember working with Dave Shore. He was cool. A lot of other bosses, I'm like, yeah, well, I remember the name kind of, but Shore is somebody that I consider a friend. So thanks for having me. And what are you up to? You're always up to something.
No, it's like I said, I miss the world of content, even though I'm in the world of the nonprofit world now at the ALS Association. And so what we do is very meaningful. But what we do is we also correspond and we engage with our constituents, our donors out there. So this is kind of my way as the boss of testing out the social media platforms. And it gives me a little chance to be live again. I said some of the best people are the people that you have in your own social networks, whether it be on Facebook or on my LinkedIn, which we're on right now as well. Amazing group of people. And, folks don't understand this. And many people will say, yeah, I've heard his name because Beto has been on nationally and he's an expert on, but you grew up in the area, right?
Yeah. Born and raised in Los Angeles. I was that kid who had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in sports. That's all I ever cared about, was somehow, some way, find a way to work in sports. And I got an internship with CNN as their runner in 2000 Democratic Convention here in Los Angeles. I actually lied for the internship because friends of mine went to USC and the internship was for major schools. So there was a USC spot, but the person who had it let it go. And then the girl I knew there was, hey, we're looking for somebody. You got to be 21 to live in the area, because it was a prestigious internship. I didn't know it was. I had no clue about that. I was in junior college and I wasn't even majoring in journalism. And they told me, we need somebody that can start in 2 days that knows how to read a Thomas Guide, which back then was that big book of shows you the maps.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because there was no map on your phone. And I was working for the New York One affiliate, who New Yorkers don't drive. New Yorkers don't know how to get around. No. So that was my job for a week for CNN, New York One affiliate, working politics. And we followed Hillary Clinton around because she was running for state Senate. So that was really cool. And once I saw what it was like as a newsroom, because at that point I wanted to be a writer. I was like, let me be Sports Illustrated, be a prep writer. I saw what a TV newsroom looked like, where it was a movie. It was, hurry up, we got 10 seconds, blah, 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 all this and that. And all of a sudden, boom, I was like, wow, I'd rather do this. This is way better. And then I started working at ESPN Radio, throwing out the T-shirts. I was setting up the tents. I was the promotions crew. I stuck my way into the radio shows and was like, hey, to the late Joe McDonald, hey, do you want me to go get your lunch? Hey, you want me to go do this? David Bassett was a producer. He's like, hey, come help me do stuff. And if I had to be at the radio station at 5 for an event, I would be there at 11, just hanging around. And I'm 20 years later, still hanging around.
Yeah, you really are. I think you may have seen that. I'll put it up there again. Alicia, we used to work with Alicia. Hey. Yeah, over at ESPN. One of our colleagues, one of those that was the smart ones that got the job done. And thank you, Alicia, for subscribing to the YouTube channel as well. I don't have these massive platforms like Beto does, and I put his up as well, so you can follow him. Always a good follow. Now I see you post a lot of pictures. You're at CBS, right?
Yeah.
Are you at CBS 2?
CBS 2 in Los Angeles, sitting next to the legendary Jim Hill, who's been in the market for over 40 years, played for the Packers, played for the Chargers, and has his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. His face is his credential wherever he walks at. He was in Rocky 3. He's the guy who asked Mr. T, what's your prediction? He said pain, just awesome. I sit next to him on Sundays, and I just banter back and forth with him. And for Jim to even allow me in the desk is a huge thing. And we have a great time. And it went from only being during football season to now I'm there every Sunday, and it's really cool. It's fun, and it's I don't take anything for granted.
No, and you know what? I always said that even before I came and met you, Beto, and came to Los Angeles, no matter what national sporting event I would cover, there would be Jim Hill. And some people will say you're the hardest working man in show business to anyone who is a hard worker, but there is no doubt that he has set the gold standard. And when I got to Los Angeles, there was some people, because of their TV job, and I get it because I was on TV as well, but you can't keep me in a studio. There was some that I never saw hardly. They may need a map to find the Staples Center. But I'll tell you what, Jim was everywhere, and the athletes, like they did with you, Beto, they trusted you because you were there when it counted in practices and things like that. I think that goes a long way. I'm sure you learned a lot from him, but I'm glad that he's getting your perspective as well.
Yeah, I still treat it like I'm that kid that's going to get told, hey, sorry, pal, you got to go. And I think that's why I still deal with the ups and downs of this, as I like to tell college students, this terrible business that's just so upside down and backwards.
Sure it is.
But the job is amazing. It's all the behind the scenes stuff that's kooky. I mean, I always tell myself, I've never had a real job. I've never done 9 to 5. I've never had an office, because I've always woken up every single day and said, I'm excited to do this. And that's the professionalism that you taught me, Jim Hill taught me, other people taught me, because why would you want to complain about where we're at? I mean, There's a reason I've never done the weather or the real news or like, crime chasing, because it's sports. Somebody's always happy. It might not be the team you like, but somebody's happy. And I've never wanted to be like, oh, so this person was murdered, or this politician this, or this and that. Just give me something happy. And that's what we do in sports. And I found a way to stick around, and I'm doing it.
Another thing you did, and I never really told you this, Beto, when we worked together, but early on in my career, I picked some things that normal people didn't want to cover. So early, I was doing shows on NASCAR back in the 90s when no one really wanted to cover NASCAR or do weekly shows. You've done a fantastic job on boxing. And what brought about your interest in your broadcasting around boxing?
Go figure. The boxing is my bread and butter. I always thought it'd be baseball, basketball, football, the major sports. And I was local shows that would happen in Los Angeles. I could get a credential, and social media was there, and they would tell, hey, can you come to this fight? There might only be 100 people, but I would go. I would just go and I would tweet about it for fun. And I'm there. And then sure enough, hey, we're looking to add a broadcaster, because there's no minor leagues of boxing broadcasters. You can't go to like single A or double A. So the reason I got into boxing, because the great Barry Tompkins, speaking of Rocky movies, Hall of Famer, legend, was doing boxing, but because he would also do college basketball, there was times where there was going to be a conflict where Barry might be on the East Coast, but he might be cutting it short, getting somewhere. So they wanted to have a backup just in case. So I got told essentially, hey, are you willing to be a backup? And I said, sure, no problem. And I taught myself how to do boxing play-by-play, because you can't do it anywhere else. This was 7 years ago. And so I would be Barry's backup if he ever had a conflict or anything like that. And sure enough, one time, a snowstorm, and he still made it, but they hired me out, and that was an opportunity for me to do it. I started cultivating, doing this and that, and I found little things. And what boxing did was they learned about streaming. They learned about putting shows on Facebook, putting shows on YouTube, wherever it is. And I had already established myself there. And now I work for DAZN. I work for Golden Boy. Actually work for 3 different promoters, and it's an interesting world. You talk about characters, but it's about being somewhere. You taught me this too, Dave, where if somebody's going one way, go the other way. Because I would see that with you when we would work Laker games. You always made sure to talk to the visiting bench guy that had some kind of connection with you somewhere, which led to something else. Yeah. And I learned a lot from you, because you would always say, because you talked about your time in Dallas, you'd always go find somebody who had some kind of connection, somebody you knew, and that opened up doors. And I remember thinking that same way, and I did the same thing now.
I appreciate that, because that was always, I figured that was the way to get some knowledge. And then 30 years later, you realize, you know what? I know everybody now, because we're old and we've been around a long time. And I know that's helped you a lot, because you got there early. You spent time talking, and that's the insight that we could provide. Let me ask you something about boxing, because all of us old people, we say, we used to watch it free on Wide World of Sports on ABC. Mm-hmm. Sugar Ray and Tyson and Holmes and Hagler. Where are we now in terms of if you're comparing generations? When was the greatest boxing, and when, and is it going to see even more of a resurgence?
It's growing, because the rights are there, and it's kind of the Wild West. So the business side is growing, because you don't need it to be on traditional TV anymore. Now, I mean, I told you, I work for one company where all we do is stream the fights on Facebook, and they sell ads, and they don't have to worry about a TV show. But as far as like the big marquee names, I mean, that era of Holyfield and Tyson and all that, it's never going to be replicated. Also, those guys were willing to fight each other. Now, a lot of guys are not willing to step up and play the best. It's like, the SEC teams, where they're not exactly scheduling the best 3 games early on. It's what was the line that somebody's always playing the Citadel, or Lou Holtz would say the Sisters of the Poor. So sometimes you see that in boxing too. It's like, hey, we could fight that guy, but I have enough money by playing against Sisters of the Poor, so why not? So, but it was you hear those stories of back in the day of how it used to transcend stuff, and it's still fun to be around, but it's become such an international sport, so it's not as big for the United States guys to sell out arenas. Like in London, they're selling out 80,000 arenas if they have to. You're not going to see that in the United States.
No. What did the mixed martial arts do to the sport?
It's helped now, because it's people are putting eyeballs out there. And what UFC and MMA did is they got on an ESPN, and what it did was it used to be where you had to pick a side. Now it's if you just want to see a fight, you can see a fight. I'm not the biggest MMA fan, but if I see that it's trending or something, I'll watch it. But I just like the fact that there's enough for everybody out there. And for example, John Anik, who is the face of the UFC now, started off as an update radio guy in Bristol, Connecticut, telling people, hey, there's this mixed martial arts sport, maybe pay attention. They're like, yeah, John, go ahead and do that. Go ahead. And now he's the face of it. Doug Kazarian, who's become the face of gambling for ESPN. Remember he was an ESPN news guy?
Yeah,
he found his little niche, and now he's in Las Vegas in a big fancy plush studio while other people are getting laid off. It's a crazy business. I don't know how you did it all these years. I don't even know how.
Well, and sometimes you know when to get off the stage too.
Are you done, Dave? Are you done broadcasting all that world?
You know what? I was still doing some when I came into the nonprofit world, but ESPN took all of their remote productions off the table. So being in the studio with Boog in the booth or whatever behind them, like I used to do at USC for the USC football on the national games. They just don't need that anymore because everybody's doing it from home. So, we may all return to the ballparks someday. I'm glad to see, the Dodgers. I'm glad to see the Rangers had a full stadium, but you're in a state that's probably even more protective than some. I mean, you've really been hit by not having anything live.
Oh yeah, this is I'm calling you from my garage where there's a green screen, and I've made it a little vision But it's interesting how it is, and like I said, when you texted me yesterday, you want to come on, and I didn't even know what the platform was. Like, sure, I'm gonna talk to Dave Shore, no problem. Like, because it's always been fun talking to you. Because even though, like I said, you were the boss, you didn't act like I'm the boss and pay attention to me here. You were more. I looked at you as more as a coach that would help grow. You were also one of those where if I was doing Lakers TV, where it might have been a conflict with the radio job that I should have been doing. You were saying, go, just make sure you take care of what we got to take care of. Where other bosses would have been, nope. And it's always nope, which is the normal.
No, I mean, and folks may not know this, but I would host a pregame show in a couple of markets and a couple of teams. And we ran on a very tight schedule. And I might have something where I needed, like Beto, at 6:21. At 6:20, if he wasn't sitting there, I didn't worry. I knew that at 6:21, you'd be there. Let me, people are amazed at who we've met and stuff. And, I know this is a tough one too, Beto. We both still miss Kobe. And I think you more than anybody could put into picture at the beginning of last year when that happened, what the community lost. And I say community, I know it's a big city, but that was a community that felt like that was a brother.
We watched him grow up, and with Kobe, he and I were the same age, and it was weird because I was like, remember, wait a minute, at high school, 1996, I'm like, there's a guy going to the NBA? Like, man, there was no internet, there was no nothing. All of a sudden, there's a guy going to the NBA. Like, who does this guy think he is? And then, because you couldn't really watch anything, you would hear about guys a couple days later in the paper. But growing up, watching him, and then going and covering him, and he and I, along with everybody else, we would butt heads because when he was in his 20s, he was very defensive. And if you came at him and asked him stupid questions, he'd give you stupid answers. He'd put you in your place. But then you realize, just like his teammates, he was challenging you. When I speak to high school kids, they would ask me about Kobe. It was always the first one. I was like, I work with the Lakers. What's Kobe like? And half the room, I hate him, love him. And he was never vanilla, either love him or hate him. But at the end of the day, he was respected. And what I always tell people about Kobe was he was professional. Whether you liked him or not, he was always there to answer your questions. And this is a dude who had the international media from China to Russia to Turkey waiting for him, and he'd always answer the questions. It wasn't exactly the best answers, but he was there with his time. Where other players who were on the bench, hey, you got quick 2 minutes? No, I got to go. Like, dude, you didn't even play. I just need a soundbite. Like, but Kobe was there for you. And here in Los Angeles, when he passed away and everybody else that passed away in that helicopter crash, I remember that day where it was, no, that's not real. Like, that's not real. Like, that's not how it happened. Like, we had seen him a couple months before because his offices were right next to the Chargers training facility, and you would kind of bump into him a little bit, and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, okay, like you're a normal person again. And this happens, every guy in their 20s is insufferable and full of themselves. You get in your 30s, you start mellowing out, and then you get in your 40s, and you just become the salty guy or the cool old uncle, and that's what they become. And it's a fabric of it. He won the championships for the city of Los Angeles, but at the end of the day, he made an impact. And in driving around Los Angeles, there's an Instagram account called Kobe Murals, where these murals have been popping up, done by local artists for him.
Seen some.
And it's really cool, and it's something that when people ask me, like, who's one of the coolest persons you ever been around, I'm always going to say Kobe Bryant.
Yeah. I knew you'd be able to share that. And when that happened, I had some pictures on my photo roll here that I could go back to and look at. And many of those were because you took them for me. I would get an interview on the post game right after it walk off the court. And I thought, you know what, I finally got Kobe on a particular night, because they rotated him so often. And then soon as I got done with that interview, I'd see you off to the side. You had snapped a photo. Those things meant a lot to me because, autographs are nice, but it's those moments that we had where we saw somebody up close and we saw them really in their work ethic.
Yeah. For us as reporters, we're not supposed to be fans. We're supposed to be neutral, and you're not supposed to be taking pictures. You're not supposed to be like having a selfie or autograph or any of that other stuff. It's part of you're doing the job. That's why anytime I see somebody doing their job in that moment, I'll take a picture for them.
Yeah, you're good at that.
And it's not because people are like, oh, can you take it for me to show it off? Because we get so caught up in doing the actual job that we forget at times that we're actually doing the job, if that makes sense. So I always try to snap somebody because at that moment, there's only one person talking to Kobe Bryant or Shaq or whoever it is you're talking to, and that's you. And then you walk away and you're like, okay, I did my job, blah, 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 and then go back to it. And then a couple of weeks later, you look it back and you reflect, whoa, actually did that. Like, I'm not one that has a bunch of memorabilia or pictures. I should be better at that stuff. I have the memories, but I know that when in a couple of years, when I want to actually get some stuff around, I'm like, damn, I've done all that? Like, really? Like, I've been on the Final Four. Like, I've always told myself, like, I'm lucky and I've earned it, but I've been to every single major sporting event. The only one I haven't done is the Olympics, and I got to find a way to work the Olympics.
Yeah, you got to, but I mean, probably not this year.
No,
or next year.
Not this year. I got time.
I don't think China will be the one to go to, but you said something very interesting because on the photos, I learned that, and I've gone back to this one that I took several times. It was at Dodger Stadium, and I came out onto the field in pregame, and Craig Sager was working. He was making notes. He was sitting in a chair behind the dugout there, and he was making notes. And worked so many games with Craig as a friend, but I snapped a photo of him at work. Just him taking his studious notes before doing his job. And it's like one of the great memories. That was before he was diagnosed, and then obviously passed. So it was those ones that you just kind of remember as to, I caught them working, and I'm glad you said that. There's been a lot of memories, and you guys have had a run this year. I mean, 2 champs, both the Dodgers and the Lakers. But
weird. I know that they were champs, but we weren't there for it. I went in the Lake won in a bubble, so it's weird. I was there for 2009 and 2010, actually being there, and it's like cool. But then this year was like, I didn't even really watch most of the games because now as a reporter, you don't have to do anything because it's just jump on Zoom and interview them. And it's like it loses that. It's not the same. And I don't ever know if we're going to go back to it. The World Series, I was there the first couple games in Arlington, and it was just weird. It's like I'm so far away, but it's cool to be there, but it wasn't cool to be there because the job that we've done over the years where I can go and give somebody some kind of information that you can't really get, it just don't happen. It's like as a reporter, you're so limited so much. And, for the World Series, we were on the 3rd deck. Like you couldn't even get anywhere near the field. And it was cool to be there, but it was at the same time like,
who knows if we'll see things ever again the same way. Let me ask you, what you mentioned one person that ended up making the move to gambling. What do you think that betting and gambling, the talk of it, has done. Because years ago, when fantasy football first came around, I had talk show hosts that would be like, I'm never going to talk about fantasy football. And then you saw when it became a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now on DraftKings, I'm watching the stream of a Madden football game because I'm so desperate to watch NFL football. I'm watching and hoping that there's a touchdown on a stream of a game being played. Yeah. How do you think it's changed sports?
We always knew that Brent Musburger and his friends in the desert, right? His friends in the desert. It was the most big, like, how do you not have any kind of gambling reference? I always wonder that. Like, you and I have talked about going to the track and always want to go to the Derby and all that other stuff. And if it's a $2 bet, it doesn't matter. It makes it exciting. And I'm glad that we're finally accepting that people actually gamble on sports. But then as soon as it opened up, my goodness, DraftKings everywhere, Bet Online everywhere. The advertising is there. It's like all of a sudden, okay, cool. But I'm glad it's here because now it gives you something to talk about. Because even on CBS, I remember asking my boss, hey, am I allowed to say that they were the underdog by 14 points? Like, I could say they're the underdog. He's like, yes, it's okay. But I know at different shops, it's not allowed. And I understand if you're working for a team, that's when you shouldn't. But if you're a casual fan, no problem. And the way that gambling is going on with the new stadiums and the technology, and I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden you can make bets from your seat now. I would not be surprised if that's coming soon.
Yeah, and you know what? It's going to be interesting to see where it goes because they finally realized let's not stop the flow of the money because that was what was driving the interest. That was what was driving the fan base. The big worry was what could happen if the game was compromised by somebody cheating. You know as well as I do, there's a lot more issues behind the scenes than there are as to what would happen during the game. Yeah, and when people are like, oh, they were in on the take, the amount of people that you need to get involved to cheat, and then like, oh, they're paying off the players. Do you know how much the players make? Like they're no longer working at Montgomery Wards in the offseason trying to supplement. Go look at the league minimums. These guys are on the take. Beto, I'm sure you get asked by a lot of young people. What's one piece of advice if someone who's watching this, and the reason why I do this is so you can watch the replay later. It's not so much the live viewers that we're getting, but if they've got a kid and they want to ask, how can I get them? What would you recommend that I do to get them started? Don't. Okay. I always tell people I always tell kids, like, do you want to do this job? I'm like, well, you're not going to make it. And if they say, well, really? I'm like, it's really hard. Like, okay. And if I tell you that it's hard and you can't make it and you're willing to accept that, then I'm saving you years of struggle. If you say, cool, I don't care, I'm going to make it with or without you, that's the attitude you got to have. It's find your own lane, be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. That's already taken. Be you. Be genuine. Take as many English classes as you can. The writing is going to be the most important thing for you. Even though we're on TV, we still write everything out. Radio, we still write everything out. That's key. Read other stuff. Don't just read the sports page. Read the business section. Know what's going on. Be worldly. And honestly, take a lot of business classes if you can in college, because next thing you know, you're going to have to figure out how to invoice different people, how to do different taxes. It's really going to help. You're going to be your own identity. But at the end of the day, follow whatever it is that's your passion. And if it's sports, great. If it's weather, great. If it's the news, if it's whatever it is, follow your passion and find a way to do it. And the thing I always tell people, without a doubt, find people who are doing the job that you want to do and ask them. Ask them for help. Ask them for advice. And next thing you know, they might end up being a mentor for you, because closed mouths don't get fed. And there's a better opportunity of you making a baseball roster than actually becoming a big-time reporter, because there's 25 people on a baseball roster, and you go to Dodger Clubhouse, there might be 6 people. It's a great job, great career, great memories, but you really have to just bet on yourself. And also, when you hear no, don't ever think somebody's, oh, they're a hater. No, it's no for a reason. Find somebody that says yes. Exactly. I love that. Before I let you go, we talked on sports, and I did get a reminder when I came into this industry and the seriousness of what we deal with and what medical specialists and everything else deal with. I realized that I really had worked in the entertainment business, because we do use sports as sports was in 9/11 and after this pandemic. it has been used to unite the country in many times and provide a form of getting away from your daily. But when there is time to get away from sports, what is something that I might not even know that you like to do, Beto?
Believe it or not, I don't even watch sports, Dave. I really don't.
That's not far stretched.
Because we're so involved with it. Now, if I'm working it, I'm all about it, right? And in what I do for myself in the morning, I'll read everything that happened the night before. I read all the Lakers stories, all the Dodgers stories. I just won't watch it that night. I, believe it or not, like become that old guy who watches the History Channel. And I get caught up in like World War II and anything U.S. war stuff. Like, I'm not going to be one of those collectors or anything like that. I just love knowing what Patton was doing and Roosevelt was doing and all that the U.S. war stuff. So that's really kind of what I do. I read a lot of that stuff just to get away from the sports stuff. So that's what really got me going during the pandemic. And then I just want to own a horse, Dave. I really just want to own a horse. I know it's a losing proposition. I know the veterinarian bills are so much. I just want to go. And even if it's a claimer race at Los Alamitos, I just want to go into the winning circle with a horse one day. And that's it. I don't want to own like a 1/100%. I want to be the main guy. All right. I want to be the guy that puts the jockey up. Like, that's all I want in life. That's it.
I want to see it. I want to see you be part of that Derby winning horse.
No, not the Derby. Not the Derby. Give me, even if it's like what is it? The carts, the ones that are racing.
Oh yeah, the harness racing.
So even if it's the harness racing,
yeah,
just give me that. Just give me that. Because I was watching. Speaking of gambling, Easy Money the other day with Ronnie Dangerfield, where
that's a good old one.
The harness racing, and the guy just put his heels into the turf, and he stopped, and they jumped on. It's like Joe Pesci jumped on the turf. I want to be the guy jumping on and beating up a jockey one day.
Okay, there you need. It's either that or one of the show horses, that just kind of gallop around a show stage. You don't want to be on the ones at Santa Anita. Yeah. No, you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to be that. Beto, it's meant a lot. It's good to catch up with you. I do this because it's 5:00 somewhere. It happens to be 5 on the East Coast. I appreciate you doing a little earlier in the day on the West Coast, but I will keep in touch with you folks. Please follow Beto as well. Beto, I hope to see you down the road. Okay.
For sure, Dave. And last thing, thank you so much for everything you did, not just as a boss, but as a friend. I appreciate it.
No, I'm glad. I'm watching you from afar. Okay. Thanks, Beto. See you later. All right, Beto Duran, the great Beto Duran. Appreciate him joining me today. I enjoy doing this, folks, because it really I realized a long time ago it's about the people that you are with. I have some great ones here at the ALS Association North Carolina chapter. We've got some great things going on. We've got the Walk Across North Carolina, Walk Your Way. That'll be coming up on June 26th. My part of the fundraising part for my walk team, sure thing, will be involved in what we're doing right here in coming weeks. Also, I wanted to let you know, please search Shore Sports Media and hit subscribe, because starting next week, that will be another platform to watch it live on. And then if you miss it, you know where to go, because I'll immediately post the last episode. And if I can figure out all the editing and everything, I'm going to try to cut down to parts of it, because we've had some interesting stories, and we'll have some interesting stories as well. I've got some other good people to bring you up with over in the coming weeks. Oh, I forgot to mention this with Beto, because we all covered what was quite a character out in Los Angeles or during the years in the NBA. But Shaq, if you didn't see the video, Shaq was in a jewelry store, and he heard a young man talking about probably the tough choice of buying an engagement ring for his soon-to-be fiance. And Shaq slipped his credit card to the man waiting on him to purchase the ring. That's not a show. I know it sometimes looks like that on social media or whatever, but that's Shaq. I can't tell you the number of times that if you watch some interviews with him, he had his day when he threw away money and learned from it, but he learned quickly and he learned the hard way. But I remember Shaq from playing at LSU and still staying in touch with the great Dale Brown, his college coach. Shaq is a wonderful human being, and that wasn't a staged thing. That's something that he would not think twice about doing again, whether there was a camera there or not. So I had to mention that because that was just that was just classic Shaq right there. I remember one time, I think I was in town with I don't remember what team it was, but I came out of shoot around in the middle of the day at Staples Center, and Shaq had this little sports car that he had just gotten, and he's like, "Get in." And so he runs me around the parking lot in this little sports car. I said, "Do you have a can opener that helps you get out of this thing?" Because he just had a big grin on his face like he was a little kid. But that was Shaq. Just loved having a good time. Well, I hope you had a good week. This is always fun for me to end that week after writing emails and having video meetings. I do hope we all again get to return in person. But do something good for someone out there. Next week, I'll tell you about another podcast that's coming involving myself and a couple of my friends as well. We talk about the world of business and leadership and marketing. And we've got some fun conversations on there as well. So I'll do this again next Friday. I don't believe that's going to be a conflict. Last week, I kind of threw it off by doing it on Thursday since I was out of town on Friday. But should be here next Friday. So thanks so much. Thanks to all of you that watched, and please share it if you can. Tell others, and we'll do this again next week at 5:00. Have yourself a great weekend.